And welcome to the Daily Space Weather, folks. I am your host, smAsho, aka Dan, and we're looking at the sun here in 304 angstroms. Plasma filaments all around the limbs. Very large plasma filament up in the northwest, this region right here, as well as some around the north polar solar polar field area. And even some filaments down here. So lots of plasma filament activity, otherwise low levels of solar activity, and another coronal mass ejection is in the process of releasing right now. We're going to tell you all about it, as well as things like the stock market, the 2020 presidential elections in the US, and all kinds of other fascinating subjects. Here's the 171 angstroms view. We see 0 sunspots. We see a cycle 24 plage. And again, there is a 4th day of coronal mass ejections about to release. We've seen multiple Earth-facing ones, and 1 or 2 of those will cause some ejecta to hit the magnetosphere. And let's tell you all about it here. Now, we're going to look at stereo A's view. That's where it's located. It's located a couple months behind the Earth, orbitally speaking. So stereo A. Here's the view from stereo A's coronagraph. And once again, we see another coronal mass ejection building up in the Earth-facing region. So if you watch this region right here, the Earth is out in this direction. And you can see this filamentary buildup here. That is an absolute characteristic of a coronal mass ejection. So if you keep watching this one throughout the day, folks, you will see that I am indeed correct. So we'll have to keep an eye on the SOHO coronagraphs to see the exact telemetry of the direction of those coronal mass ejections. So currently, we do see some ejecta headed Earth-facing way. We see some plasma on both sides of the coronagraph here. And this is just some stealthy solar ejecta here. But again, that coronal mass ejection right there, that is kicking off. That will release from the corona throughout the day today. And there could be some coactivity going on there as we see 2 different spots of ejecta forming. And we could see some limb darkening here on the 171 angstroms also. Another indication, limb darkening of coronal mass ejection. So anyway, keep an eye on that throughout the day. Now we're over at HelioViewer looking at the fields. And we do see one organized spot over here, which could turn into a sunspot. This active region up here is not a sunspot. It's a cycle 25 plage. And there's the fade back to 171 angstroms. And we did make a short HelioViewer movie here in the 304 angstroms view. I don't know why it's so dark. For some reason it came out very dark. And we're just trying to show you those plasma filaments down there in the southwest. And let's move on to more data. KP index is at 1. And again, very low levels of solar activity. 10.7 centimeter radial flux has dropped down to 69. So the lowest we've seen in several weeks, possibly a month plus. GOES X-ray flux, pretty flatlined, no real surprises there. And it looks like we've got a couple missing data points. And let's talk about Cygnus X3 real quick. Cygnus X3 has left its quiescent state. You can see this 0 line is consistent with the lowest states that you'll ever see X3 at. We've moved back up to around 0.05. Which coincides with more like this region. So Cygnus X3 back from a quiescent state to an active state. If you want to read all about it, check out smashomash.com/forum. We've got a whole section in the cosmology thread, the cosmology forum, Cygnus X3 massive X-ray binary. And celestial pole star at sort of the other end of the precessional cycle. an interesting object to say the least, and one of the most likely point sources for cosmic rays. This is what it looks like if you look at it in radio and X-ray. This object here is a massive radio source orbiting this Wolf-Rayet star in a period of 4.8 hours. So if you don't think that object's weird, then I think you're weird, because that's a weird object. And by the way, we're looking right down the polar jet of that, so head to smashomash.com/forum and read all about it. It's multiple pages long with tons of information about Cygnus X3 and what the ancients thought of it. Let's go to cosmic rays. Since we're talking about Cygnus X3, here's the Apatity neutron monitor showing a small uptick of about 1% over the past 30 days. Barentsburg showing about a 1.5% downtick over the past 30 days. Next, we'll look at the Athens neutron monitor, and there's the data from that, looking fairly flat over the past 30. Here's Mexico City, also quite flat over the past 30 days. Here's Moscow, and we saw this before we even did coverage of it, and then the sites went down. It looks like their cosmic ray monitor might have gone down, their neutron monitor there in Moscow. Hopefully that isn't destroyed, and not sure on whether that's anomalous data or not, because if it is, that's probably about an 8 to 12% uptick over the past 30 days, assuming it returns to normal levels. The Moscow neutron monitor. And before we look at OLU and DOMC Antarctica, I would note that we always list the Network of Cosmic Ray Stations site in the description below the video, so you can monitor these yourself and drop us a line at smashomash@gmail.com. That's smashomash@gmail.com. If you see anything weird going on, we will cover it. And our patrons and Subscribe Star folk are more than aware of this, as they found out about 36 hours before our YouTube viewers. That's what happens when you pay us. So there's the OLU neutron monitor. Maybe a 0.5% uptick there over the past 30 days. DOMC is not sending data, but DOMC is. And DOMC is flat over the past 30. Again, feel free to monitor cosmic rays yourself. Links in the description to that. Let's go to the real-time solar wind. Showing a pretty uninteresting BTBZ with a BT of 3.3 and a BZ of -1.8. No big deal there. Phi angle currently at about 260 degrees. Solar wind density quite low, 2.38 protons per cubic centimeter. And we see a ramp down of the solar wind speed over the past 24, down to just over 400 kilometers a second. There's the data from ACE, and with the most recent update looking corroborative. Next, we'll look at geospace magnetosphere movies. Here's 4 hours of data, and it's looking pretty weak, and we've got some spikes on the way. Don't be surprised if you suddenly see this thing go a little haywire, as we've seen coronal mass ejections in the Earth-facing vicinity over the past 4 days. And if you don't believe us, watch our old videos. We get the information out there long before NASA and NOAA and any other YouTube channel does. Not to mention BitChute, our Minds.com channels. And before that even happens, we get the information out to our patrons and Subscribe Star members. Anyway, we're going to let this play through as it refreshed here. That's 4 hours of geospace ground magnetic perturbations. Keep in mind, folks, if you're new, there's a North Pole over here. There's a North Pole over here. The net North Pole is around here. And the South Pole is creeping into the Indian Ocean to an area southwest of Australia. Nothing too exciting going on there. Let's look at the GOES magnetometer, which is continuing to have a sawtooth appearance, as we've been forecasting the whole time. And we're going to see some continued anomalies in this data, as there's a lot going on between the Earth and the Sun right now. Keep in mind, folks, plasma blocks magnetometer readings on the regs. And without getting totally into it, here is the top view ecliptic plane field plot on the Gong 2 data. Let me blow that up. There we go, that's a little better. This data 1 hour and 33 minutes old. Keep in mind, magnetic environments can change with absolutely no warning, and that's part of why we have the channel, as we are able to forecast things that we never expected the ability to do. And we are expecting continued spikiness in the GOES magnetometer as we see some serious plasma irregularities out here in the corona. No forecast available on that data. Here's the line of sight field plot showing the B field in blue, the north solar polar field in green, and the south solar polar field in red. If you want to see what this looks like at solar maximum, watch yesterday's video. We include a piece on it. And let's just say it looks a little differently when there's lots of sunspots. Relativistic electrons are still at moderate levels. Nothing too exciting there. GOES electron flux still at moderate levels. There's the data on that. Here's the total electron content. We'll let this play through also. This is a forecast which will tell you things like satellite drag, satellite charging hazards, rather, as well as GPS errors, and not a lot of that going on. Pretty normal levels for that. Here's the ionosphere, and this is 6 hours of data from Bureau of Meteorology Australia, and everything's looking fairly normal there. Nighttime discharges, daytime charges, pretty normal. Nothing to write home about there. By the way, yesterday's video got demonetized once again for absolutely no reason, as YouTube censors us, tries to throttle our content, and does everything it can to prevent us from getting paid for making our videos. So follow us also on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/smAsho. Yesterday's live Twitch exclusive happened, and we streamed it live because we want exclusive content everywhere. Were you aware that Hillary Clinton is back on the betting odds for getting the Democratic presidential nomination? There it is, folks. Read them and weep. Oh, yeah. So the best guess is still Bernie. And follow me on Instagram, as there's lots of exclusive content there. Stuff about how Tom Steyer is nuts. And thanks to our patrons for being assistant and associate producers of the content. Please consider becoming a patron, the true source of funding for the channel. And we need lots more funding in 2020, as we are going to be filing nonprofit paperwork and doing all kinds of things that we won't disclose in the video. So thanks again, patrons. Please consider becoming a patron if you enjoy the content and our mission. It's patreon.com/smAshomash. Also, we are now on Subscribestar as well, so check us out there. It's a different tier. The tiers on Patreon are $1 and $9.99 a month. The only tier on Subscribestar is $3 a month. And we will be changing those formats regularly, and again, sending out exclusive content. For more exclusive content, check us out on BitChute. It's bitshoot.com/smAshomash. And there are the latest thumbnails for our videos there. Yesterday's was called Celebratory Special, Virus, No Malarkey Joe, Tom Steyer, Climate Changes. Also, follow us on alt-tech like minds.com/smAshomash. And don't forget to follow the hashtag MummifyBernie. Yes, MummifyBernie. Let's move on to some more data. And we are looking at Mount Yasur in Indonesia. I just wanted to show you where this volcanic island is located. There's that volcano before we look at the pressure maps here on windy.com, who, by the way, has a great mobile app. And there are the pressure maps on windy.com. We're going to let this advance. There's the current pressure map on windy.com. We'll let this advance via the GFS forecast, and I'll vanish. And here's where things will be at about 12 noon tomorrow, my time. Next, we'll look at earthquakes, and thanks for the update, Mary. I appreciate the email. And we're just going to scroll up the list here. We see no quakes over a 6 magnitude, so really we're in an earthquake drought, folks. And we do see a bunch of deep quakes kicking off. Here's one out in the Aleutian Islands. It's a 4.5 magnitude at 94.9 kilometers. Here's an extremely deep quake at a 4.6 magnitude at Indonesia. Over here on the map. And that one is 503.9 kilometers depth at a 4.6 magnitude. Back to the deep quake capital of the world near Fiji, we see a 4.9 magnitude at 537 kilometers. Here's another Alaskan deep quake, 171 kilometers, beneath Redoubt Volcano, 3.1 magnitude. Here's another Aleutian Island quake, a 4.8 magnitude at 148 kilometers. So extreme depth earthquakes, folks, kicking off here. Here's a Tongan quake, 4.5 magnitude at 361 kilometers. So deep quakes out the yin-yang. It looks like the largest of the past 24 was this 5.7 out in the Aleutian Islands. Let's take a look at the location of that. Looks like it's in an ocean, a small ocean rift. And there is the location of that, the largest quake of the past 24. It's a 5.7 magnitude. And just scrolling up the list here, that's about all we'll be covering today. Asian markets bounce back as organizations like the Central Bank of Japan talking about stimulating the economy. So we're expecting to see the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates to this week on Wednesday. And the futures for the U.S. stock market are going to soar. And I actually forecasted this yesterday as I noticed that the precious metals had dropped back down and have massive volatility now. So gold and silver are massively volatile. They've dropped back down in price. And bond yields have started to come back up a little bit after they crashed, indicating less money trying to hide in U.S. T-bonds. And this is a good sign for the market, although not a good sign for inflation, as central banks will be injecting money into the economy. This article is from Reuters. Links provided, perhaps, if we're feeling like it, below the video. Dow futures up more than 500 points, and now they've updated it to say Dow futures point higher. So earlier it said 200 points, then it said 500 points, now it just says higher. So some volatility today expected in the market. You can pretty much guarantee that. And I'll just scroll the article so anybody who feels like reading it can just do so. Not surprisingly, the Japanese yen has weakened against the dollar. No surprise there. I just literally forecasted increased inflation, and the article verified what I'd said. As I understand economics, unlike a lot of people, most people probably, especially certain U.S. presidential candidates such as Bernie Sanders, economic illiterate. Now, I'm not sure what those two dum-dums are doing right now. I think they might be urinating on each other's shoes. Please leave a comment if you have an opinion. Mini Mike versus, I'm not going to call him crazy Bernie, I'm going to call him ignorant Bernie. Mini Mike versus ignorant Bernie. Silicon Valley has emerged as a battle of Bernie versus Bloomberg ahead of Super Tuesday. That's right, as ultra-rich tech executives can't decide who they want to support. Some of them want to support Bloomberg because he's their big business candidate. And some of them want to support Bernie because, I don't know, they're socialist fools. In any case, another article here on CNBC talking about the Bernie v. Mike Bloomberg battle. If you think Bloomberg's going to win the nomination, I'll laugh and laugh. Please leave a comment if you think it's shocking that the U.S. is about to nominate a legit socialist, really a communist, as U.S. politics have become cringeworthy. Canada's losing its mind, as they've referred to coronavirus or COVID-19 as the Gretzky of viruses. And you know stuff is getting serious. when Canadians start making Gretzky references. If you want to read all about COVID-19, check out smAshomash.com/forum. We've got a 7+ page repository of information, including all kinds of stuff about how to battle viruses, such as consuming elderberries, consuming lemon and cayenne pepper, consuming L-lysine. And we're updating it regularly. Please show up, set up a login, put up a post, introduce yourself in a different section. If you've got a news story or an opinion not being covered on our forum, please cover it. We invite all of our viewers, our friends and our foes, to participate at smAshomash.com/forum. Let's look at the current data, and we see this unfortunate yellow graph down at the bottom, still rising, while cases in China are leveling off, possibly an indication that they're able to contain it a little bit. I wouldn't suspect that they would be able to, considering how many people are there and how difficult it is to stop people from doing things they want to do. We've got 2 deaths in the U.S. happening yesterday evening, both in Washington, and both fairly unhealthy patients from what I understand. One was a 70-year-old woman and one was a man in his 50s. I know the guy in his 50s at least had significant health problems. And still considering what the fatality rate may be in COVID-19, if it's 3%, that's a little more than the flu. If it's 1%, that's a little less than the flu. It's still not significantly more than the flu, and it's nothing like H1N1. It's nothing like Ebola or something like smallpox, which has much higher fatality rates. And speaking of fatality rates, let's look at volcanoes. We've got some new ones on the list, which is why we showed you Yasur earlier and where it's located in Indonesia. And let's look at the list. Kluchevskoy, back to erupting. Abiko, flight level 6,000 there. Flight level 23,000, by the way, at Kluchevskoy, so big uptick there on the Kamchatka Peninsula. Mount Aso in central Kyushu, Japan. Flight level 6,000 there. Suwanosejima on the Ryukyu Islands exploded. Not sure the flight level there. Bagana, another new one on the list. That one at Papua New Guinea, exploding. 7,000-foot plume there. Mount Yasur, exploding. 5,000-foot plume there. Popocatépetl exploding. Flight level 19,000. Fuego exploding, flight level 15,000. Sangay exploding, flight level 20,000. Revenador exploding, flight level 14,000. And the intermittent emissions from Sabancaya are not an indication to attempt to pole vault the caldera. And one other thing here, I've come back to windy.com because I wanted to debunk an article that I saw on a website. I won't name the website, but I saw an article that needed debunking. So I looked up this idea that pollution has stopped in China. So I checked out the carbon monoxide levels, and here are the carbon monoxide levels in China. If you think those are an indication that production has stopped in China, think again. We're also going to look at sulfur dioxide, another pollutant produced by industrial processes, as well as nitrogen dioxide. So I don't know what the article was talking about. The article was citing nitrogen dioxide not showing up anymore in satellite images, and it's simply not true. So if anybody is telling you that China is no longer polluting because of coronavirus, just head to windy.com and show them the actual data, since that's not true, clearly. So thanks for tuning into the videos, folks. Thanks for having the gift of discernment and trying to understand the distinction between your you-know-what and a hole in the ground. Turns out that soot particles have less effect on climate warming than we thought, since soot particles are a global cooling factor, since they cause clouds to nucleate on the soot particles. Here's an article from phys.org. Another failure in climate modeling. Soot particles are unique, as the previous models included spherical soot particles, and guess what? Soot particles in reality aren't spherical. So they absorb heat in the atmosphere, not just coming from the Earth, but also coming from space. They cause clouds to form. They cause cloud nucleation, as they provide a matrix for water droplets to condense and form clouds, and clouds are an Earth cooling effect via the albedo effect. If you want to read all about it, it's on phys.org in the Earth section. Please don't lose an IQ point reading the Earth section, as practically every article in there has nonsense about how the planet's so hot that it's cold. 2 standard deviations above normal snowfall for 3 years in a row, and apparently the Arctic is burning up, which is a complete joke and a pathetic excuse for information and data. Here's lightningmaps.org. We're showing you where the lightning's striking. And we're going to get into value-added services. Here is the U.S. Doppler radar map. If you don't know how a Doppler radar array works, well, I'll explain it. It is a ground-based microwave radar which is measuring vertical motion in the cloud column. And this is why sometimes the radar will show snow when it's not snowing. It's not because the radar's wrong, it's because the snow's not making it all the way to the ground. Anyway, there's the data from that. Next, we're going to go to Null School, and I'm going to hit refresh. And we're looking at the jet streams of the Eastern world here. And we see doubled up jet streams there over the Middle East, as well as a fairly coherent jet stream over places like Saudi Arabia and India, and a very turbulent jet stream in the south. Here's a view from the South Pole. And it's not so crazy. Let's move it over to the Western world's jet streams. And there we see an extreme bend. Looks like some very cold air is going to be headed all the way down to places like San Diego in the next day or two. Expect some cold temperatures out there in San Diego. And all the best to Brett. Hopefully everything works out great for you. Please get yourself out of the hospital as quickly as possible. Hopefully we did not divulge too much information there for you, bud. Here is the water vapor map over Africa and Europe. And there's the dates. So there's that data. Next we'll look at the water vapor map over Oceania. Showing you the same dates there. And we see some persistent dry air here over South Australia there, out to the east of Perth, as well as an upper level low slowly making its way to the southeast. Next we'll look at the U.S. water vapor map. And we're going to zoom in at this convergence zone once again over Arkansas. And there is that zone, looking pretty funky right there. And you can see another evidence here. This is a upper level water vapor here, causing a bit of a pressure inversion in this area. If you're flying a plane across Arkansas today, expect some turbulence. If you feel like you're riding a bus on a bumpy road, don't be surprised. Impress your friends. Know how to forecast airline turbulence. And hey, Smash team, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for leaving comments. Thanks for sharing on your social media. Please don't forget to press like and subscribe. Leave a comment wherever you're viewing, whether it's on BitChute. Set up an account on Minds. Head to smashomash.com/forum. Here is bonus feature number 1 of 3, showing the local yellow dwarf in intensitygram and showing no sunspots. Here is the local yellow dwarf's colorized magnetogram. Places to watch throughout the day are this region right here, this region right here. Again, neither of which are sunspots, but are showing some activity. And last but not least, it's the 131 angstroms view. This is one that takes more images than the other scopes except for the 94 angstrom. This one takes 10 images per minute instead of only 2, like the 94 angstroms wavelength view. That's 48 hours of the local yellow dwarf's activity. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind